What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Cash Game Show. I am your host, Keith Flemming, joined as always by my good friend, brother from another mother, Joseph the Brain Matz. Joe, what's going on, buddy?
Just trying to do well in all things fantasy and betting to make up for the New York Giants fourth quarter last Sunday. Just trying to put that in the rear view.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Joe. This is a safe space. Seriously, if there was ever a safe space, it's with the guy who lost a Super Bowl in similar fashion, okay? So it's best to just talk about it and move on and be prepared that now, like, moving forward, anytime a collapse happens in the fourth quarter, they will bring it up. It took about 10 years, because what were we, 9 years now from the Falcons loss to where now it doesn't happen for every game. Now, postseason games,
Right,
immediately it's
happen.
still going to come up. But at least for regular season games, they don't anymore, 28-3. It's, I've said it before, I'll say it again. March 28th, least favorite day of the year. At what point did you know you were losing?
I mean, I don't think I knew we were losing until, honestly, once they scored, it felt like I knew we were losing. We were in 4th and 19, and I was like, well, it's over. And then they ruled we converted it. We did not. That would have been overturned on review, but there was a late hit. So then we survived. But as soon as he missed the extra point, then it was like we were 30 seconds up to. They had no timeouts. So it was like, oh, we're gonna lose. We don't get to escape this if you miss the second extra point. So that's when I knew. But when I really got concerned, as soon as he threw that pick, it was like, oh, this is.
You could tell by his reaction too. I think Dart felt that way as well. Yeah. By the way, one of Skip Bayless's only correct takes. Let's get rid of kickers. I think it would be fun. I really do. You have to go for it on two. You either punt or go for it on fourth down. Like, I think they're onto something, like, with that. Like, I really do. It's not football, right? Like,
we talked about the Bill Simmons take that he threw out to Mina Kimes, and then she brought up later on her own podcast, where it's like, what if you had a limited number of kicks that you could attempt during the course of the game? Like,
I'm down
you get
with
3,
that. Yeah.
Make them count.
Like timeouts.
Yeah. Exactly. You're going to get 3. Yeah, maybe you get like an automatic 1 per half, and then you can get, I don't know, another 2 total for the entire game. So you get a max of, you could still get 4. That wouldn't change the game that much potentially, but it would make you have to think a little bit harder about some of these.
When to take them. And also just like, we all love crapping on coaches, right? And second guessing. It opens up a whole nother Pandora's box. This moron's trying to kick a 48-yarder. It's 4th and 1. You know who wouldn't give a shit? For it.
Dan Campbell. He'd be like, I don't need this. This doesn't matter to me.
He's like, Mama didn't raise no
God bless him.
We're not here to talk about that. And I'm sorry, I didn't want to bring up the Giants, but you did it. So
no, I did it. Yeah. So
I do want to real quickly. Your boys are heating up. It took us a while to get going. I'll admit, like, especially my picks the first month were
the last 2 weeks. You have been cooking.
We have been cooking. Like, in all seriousness, like, all of a sudden, we're getting going. And me and Joe, again, we don't think we're rocket scientists. We pick on bad defenses. So the further the season goes on,
it usually works out. Yeah,
we usually do better. Like, that's just kind of been our motto. So this week, week 8, let's start, as we always do, with the quarterbacks. I'm having a hard time, like, not looking at pretty much the same 2 guys we've been looking at most weeks, which are Drake May and Daniel Jones. The one guy that obviously is interesting, I just talked about picking on bad defenses, Bo Nix. I mean, Dallas is so bad. They score so many points. Jaden Daniels, which was really my one straight up, quote unquote, whiff last week of my official cash game locks, he still scored 18 points in 3 quarters. So he was well on his way before leaving with an injury to a huge game. Dallas is still allowing, I mean, we're 8 games into the season. They're still allowing basically 20 points per game just passing to opposing quarterbacks. We know Bo Nix was QB8 last year. Big part, right, was his legs, and that is starting to ring true again as he's averaging 7 points per game with his legs over his last 3 games. He's still averaging almost 5 points per game this season with his legs. Those are free points. And if you're playing Dallas and then you're pretty much giving me 5 points starting against Dallas, I'll take that. So, like, I'm having a hard time not, picking those 3 QBs. A little bit more concern with maybe May and Jones this week just because of their opponents. Can Cleveland, Tennessee score enough points that they have to keep the pedal to the metal? That would maybe be my one concern,
Right.
but they've just been both so consistent. Those are the 3 guys this week I'm circling, and they're all kind of in that same, $6K price range.
Yeah. And this probably will sound a little bit bitter, but I can't say watching that entire game I came away like overly impressed with Bo Nix, which it feels weird to say that when I think he set. I'm just presuming he set the record for points scored in a 1 quarter fantasy wise.
Oh,
Did he not?
in fantasy, he may have. I thought you were going to say they just missed the most points
Right, they got close
in a 4th quarter.
But yeah, I think he matched more or less their output in the 4th quarter with 33 points because he didn't do anything for the first 3 quarters. And so there will be weeks where we might be like, oh, his legs are good, and I might try to poo-poo us away from him because I think there's issues with that offense. He still is not hitting the deep ball consistently, although the 2 deep passes he hit were, I believe, on that last drive when he had 30 seconds left, even though I think one of them ended up in the hands of a receiver he was not throwing to. But that's more of a,
Is that like when you hit the glass, in basketball and you didn't mean to, but you're
right, you didn't call it.
Bank.
But like in this case, it feels like if you did that, but you left the guy wide open, where it's like, oh, you kind of deserved it. So that's how I felt about the Giants. But like you said, it's the Cowboys. The only week this season where they have not given up multiple touchdown passes is week 1 and last week. And again, if Daniels gets to play, what really was going to be garbage time, because they were, even before he got hurt, that game was not going to go well for Washington because they could not stop Dallas to save their lives. He probably is going to get another passing touchdown or a rushing touchdown. And that's the other thing too. The 2 games where they didn't give up the multiple passing touchdowns, Hurts and Daniels, they both ran for 60-plus yards. Well, I guess I'm looking at the total, so that could be Mariota yards as well in there. But 60 yards for the quarterbacks and at least 1 rushing touchdown. So Bo Nix, good chance. And the other thing is one of the big worries you would probably have in a lot of Denver games is, what if this turns into a slog? Because that's a great defense. And I would not say don't overreact to them giving up 5 touchdowns to the Giants. This is still one of the best defenses in the NFL. If maybe it's not as elite as people were thinking, as recently as a week ago, but it's still very, very good. But this Dallas offense is like, they're cooking as much or more than your picks have been the last couple of weeks.
They're averaging 37 points a game since the week 2 loss.
Right. And that's with a majority of that time without CeeDee Lamb, who immediately comes back and looks like CeeDee Lamb. So I don't think this, I'd be very surprised if this turns out to be a 20-17 game. This feels like it'll be a similar score potentially to what we just saw Denver and the Giants do, but probably not all in the 4th quarter. But yeah, to me, 6K against that defense, that does feel like the best play. I'm with you. I'm not like scared out of the matchup with Drake May. Cleveland's 3rd, but again, I think to your point, part of that is, and don't get me wrong, it's a good defense, elite defensive line.
Yep.
And that, I think, could be where there's going to be some issues. The Patriots, who have not been able to run against anyone, will definitely not be able to run it against Cleveland. And so that's going to put it all on May, and he's been fine with that this whole time. But there's enough there where it's like, all right, I can save the 400 and get Bo Nix against a terrible defense. I like that a lot more. If you really wanted to play it safe, I wouldn't do this at quarterback because I think there's going to be opportunities to spend up elsewhere. Jalen Hurts scored 21 against the Giants in a game where he played poorly and they didn't score any points in the second half. So now at home, wanting some revenge, feeling confident coming off of toasting the Vikings, I think he could be going for a big game, but
I don't know if you can hear that in the background too. The train is chewing across the street from my house. So if that's not a sign that we should be playing Jalen Hurts, I don't know what it is.
So yeah, Jalen Hurts, keep him in mind. Caleb Williams did not come through for me last week, but if Lamar is playing, Chicago-Baltimore's got some shootout potential.
And
But if I was
Baltimore's
going
defense is awful either way.
right,
So
just been ravaged. And then of course, the other cheap guy that I think you'd have to consider is Jackson Dart because he's just been his average is just completely thrown off by the fact that he played like 5 snaps in 2 games. As a starter, his lowest output is 18 points.
Yep.
And he costs $5,500. So again, we always talk about you want to triple whatever the price
by
tag
the way,
is.
he is averaging
He's done it every time.
Almost 8 points per game with his legs. So you want to talk about starting a game, not from zero. What is this? His 5th start? How many games has he started now? 4 or 5, right?
4 games he started now, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now that's a big enough sample size where dude's getting 8 points per game. It actually reminds me a lot of Bo Nix last year. That was Bo Nix last year, where it was like every game, it seemed like he'd either have a rushing touchdown or 40, 50 rushing yards. And he ended up being QB8. So I don't know what else people need to see with Jackson Dart. I'm with you. Like if he's not a safe play now in cash, I don't know if there ever is one, right? Like,
and again, the Eagles played. It felt like the get back on track game, but it was really a get back on track on offense game. But the defense was not shutting it down. And the other thing is, for the shootout potential, again, I don't think the Eagles are going to get shut out in a half in this game. That would be if the Giants were healthy. Paulson Adebo is not practicing so far this week. Javon Holland has not practiced. Those are 2 guys who did not play the majority, or in Holland's case, the entire 4th quarter, which, hey, what happened there? And Brian Burns has also not been practicing so far this week. Now, none of them have been ruled out so far as I know, so still potential there. I'm fingers crossed as a Giants fan. But, yeah, this is a Giants defense that's going to be missing starters. So, again, I think the Eagles are going to pour on points in this game. I think Dart's going to have to just try and do his best to keep up. So I think there's points all around there. I still, though, if I can, unless I need that extra 500, I'm still going Bo Nix just because, again, it's hard to find a safer play than quarterback facing the Dallas Cowboys.
I will say, and as somebody who has hyped up Justin Fields all this season, there's a big part of me hoping that Tyrod Taylor starts versus Cincy
I do too.
On Sunday at 4,500.
The thing that scares me, though, is, and maybe at 4,500, if you're somehow trying to fit in Jonathan Taylor and Bijan this week, and you're just like, fuck it, I got to, cut corners somewhere else because those guys are crazy expensive, then it could be worth the risk. But it's just, even if he starts, like, how much do you trust either guy not to get pulled for the other if things are going poorly? Because the thing that saved us previously is garbage time for the Jets. And if you do, and that's true with Tyrod too. It turned out not to be garbage time in that Tampa Bay game because they actually took the lead at one point in the 4th quarter there. But
no, he started the Tampa game.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
I see what you're saying. I got you. Yeah,
they were not productive for 3 quarters.
Right.
And then I think Tampa Bay let up a little early, and then all of a sudden they were down, and then Baker worked his magic. But yeah, if you look at the 4th, I should have taken the time to break this down. Like, if you look at the 4th quarter output for the Jets passing game, or just their quarterbacks because they run the ball too, versus the first 3 quarters,
since week 1, it's been severe. Yeah, like Fields actually did have a really good game versus Steelers, and that was throughout. But yeah, you're right. Like, since then, it's been.
Right. It's a mini version of what Bo Nix did last week, just every single week, and they never come back and win. So that's the scary thing to me there. If I felt confident
that's a good
Tyrod
point.
would play the whole game, 100% would throw him in some lineups. As is, again, the only way I'm doing it is if I can do it where I can figure out a lineup that gets me Taylor and Bijan, because those guys, I don't know that you could do it otherwise unless you go crazy cheap at up like
Well,
4
what am I doing
positions.
then here? Actually, Joe Flacco, 5,400. Is that not the play?
Joe Flacco, if you're trying to go,
I mean, he
save
scored
an extra
basically
$100.
19 points in both starts, right? That's his
Yeah.
3x number. The Jets defense is freaking awful. Like, uh, we were talking about, I think, on the phone yesterday. Robert Saleh has done such a great job in San Francisco, and the Jets defense has literally not been the same. Like, say what you want
No.
about him as a head coach, very fair. But since he's left, like their defense has gone from like one of, like a actually elite defense to just awful.
Right.
And Joe
31st
Flacco
against the
throwing it, if
pass
he's going to
on
be throwing
DVOA.
30 times to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, which that's one thing we knew about Joe Flacco is he was going to do that. And then, oh, by the way, now all of a sudden Chase Brown's moving around out there, gaining 100 yards on 11 carries. I'm like, wait a minute. Is this Bengals offense really good? Because actually, Flacco may end up being one of those guys that this is the last week you get him at this price. Because I guarantee he has another big game this week. And that offense has another big game this week, which they should versus the Jets. His price is going to go up, I think, a good bit.
For sure.
Because, I mean, he's gone from 4,000 to 4,900 to 5,400 in 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that 4,000, I think they might have already priced that in before you even
You're
traded.
Right. You're right.
But yeah, even when we'd seen him play well, it was still he was under 5K. So yeah, and that matchup by DVOA, those are 2 of the 3 worst defenses against the pass. So again, if you could guarantee me who the Jets QB will play the whole game,
I'm glad you said that, though. No, that's a very fair point, and it's something. I mean, hell. Aaron Glenn, I'm being coy. It's like, dude, you're 0-6, or 7, whatever it is. Just pick a freaking quarterback. Like, I don't want to give the competitive advantage. It's like you don't have any competitive advantage. Have you watched your team this year? All right, running backs.
Real quick.
Yeah.
What you'd probably been paying more attention to this than I have. What are the odds that Penix plays this week?
It's looking like he will.
Okay, because I was going to say he gets interesting.
Cousins,
because well, whoever's starting for Atlanta becomes interesting because again they're playing Miami, and granted, Bijan feels like the obvious play here, and I'm not going to argue against that at all. I'm going to argue for it, but again, dead last against the pass in DVOA. This is again the defense even more than Dallas, especially as Dallas has shown some competence, at least comparatively. Miami is just a total mess. This team's a disaster defensively. If you're telling me we can get a quarterback at, under 5K that's playing the worst defense in the NFL, that becomes interesting.
That's fair. My concern would be that Atlanta's defense has actually been pretty good.
They just get so out of hand immediately.
Right. That it's like, and again, we'll talk about that in like literally right now. The running backs, man.
You got to get one of them.
The alpha trio is what I'm calling these 3 because it is like they have separated themselves so much.
Yeah.
You can't, like, I'm not going to argue with any of them, right? Like, you got JT, 9,500. He has now scored 30 points or more in 4 of his last 5. He scored 26.7 or more in 5 of his last 6. And Tennessee's awful. CMC, he's 9K. He's Mr. Automatic. We saw how huge George Kittle returning was to the run game, which I had not even really thought about that with Atlanta. But Kittle he's such an elite blocker. It's almost like adding a 6 offensive lineman. And I mean, Atlanta had been pretty good versus the run, and they just got shredded by a CMC Sunday night. But I'm sorry, like Bijan 8,800, I don't know what else really you're looking for in this kind of situation. I mean, like, he's the cheapest. That's a starter. Yeah. Algiers banged up. That's 2 things in his column. Third, he's at home, which I cannot underestimate how much better Penix, London, and Bijan have been since they've been a trio in home games compared to road. This season at home, Bijan's worst game, 27.8 points at home, averaging 32.4 points per game. And then maybe most importantly, this Dolphins run defense is so bad. 159 yards on the ground. That number actually came down last week because yeah, like they did a decent job actually slowing down Jukins from having like a monster rushing yardage day, but they gave up 3 rushing touchdowns again for the second time this season. There's only been 4 instances. Now, granted, Jonathan Taylor has 3 of them, but there's been 4 instances of a running back scoring 3 rushing touchdowns in a game this season. Miami's now allowed 2 of them. So, I like I can't find a way not to put Bijan in. And then, as you were getting to, I will probably try to get creative and find a way to have a lineup with Bijan and JT, Bijan and CMC, especially the wide receivers this week. I think it's perfectly fine spending down. Like, it's not any guy just screaming at me, oh, I got to have this guy. And I actually like the rest of the backs on this slate are all like 5,700 and cheaper. So there's ways you can finagle it, but like I don't think I can sit Bijan again at home versus his decent defense. Tyler Algier has been limited in practice all week. Admittedly, he's the more banged up of the 2 guys. And again, at home, Bijan, I think just on that turf, he's like unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only way I'm not putting Bijan in my lineup is if I'm putting Taylor in my lineup. Like, that's it. And I mean, all due respect to McCaffrey because he's been automatic, but I think I would take Bijan straight up because it's Houston versus Miami. That's for your opposition. That's about as wide of a gulf as you can get in the quality of the defense you're facing.
Houston's still giving up like less than 15 points per game. Miami's almost giving up 30.
Right. So, McCaffrey will still be productive, I'm sure. So, that's not a concern there. The concern is he's 9K. So Bijan at 88, I agree. He's the number 1 play. I don't know. Again, if the prices were the same, maybe I'm still just sticking with Taylor. But saving 700, he's going to be, again, in every lineup except for somewhere I put Taylor in. That's the only situation because
how about Indy is 17 for 17 this season on goal to go situations. Is that not a Jonathan Taylor stat?
Right? Yeah, it's the everything, right? It's Taylor is arguably the best running back in the NFL. He's certainly, if you're arguing someone's ahead of him, it's McCaffrey and it's Bijan.
Mm-hmm.
And then the offensive line, you got to put them, I'd say top 5. And then Steichen, at this point, are we arguing against him as a top 5 play caller? Probably not. So again, just a well-oiled machine.
And they're playing Tennessee, which, by the way, they're really bad as well on defense, particularly against the run.
I mean, you could argue Taylor and Bijan in a super flex, they might be the number 1 and 2 this week. Like that's how good their matchups are.
Yep.
That you could argue them over the quarterbacks. So yeah, you 100%. You have to find a way. Doesn't matter that they're super expensive. One of those guys has to be in your lineup.
Where else are you going?
I think then I want to go cheap because there's other guys who are interesting. Obviously, I'm certainly hoping Cam Scatterbo has another productive game against the Eagles, but Rachaad White I think is interesting because New Orleans is another team where it's just like I'm expecting Tampa Bay to be productive, and they're still banged up with the receivers, and Bucky Irving's still not back. So I do like that one, but
I do too. What about Derrick Henry though? If Lamar plays,
right,
is that not very intriguing to you? Like, at 6K,
absolutely.
It's like that feels like stealing. And I understand it's been a rough year.
Right, and to be fair to anyone who's doubting us right now,
if you remember,
it was rough
into the Rams
with Lamar out there.
That like this would be the week with everybody off of him. Watch Henry, and he did. He had a great game. I know he had a costly fumble.
They scored 3 points in that game, and he came away with 17 because he ran for $120 in a game that the rest of the
Against a
team
good
could do
defense,
shit.
too. Against a really good
Yeah.
defense. The Bears are not that.
The Bears, it's not terrible, but it's not good.
And
It's
what's
not anything
funny
we're concerned
is
about.
Swift right underneath him is the exact inverse to where if Lamar doesn't play, I think
Right.
Swift is a tremendous
Becomes,
value. And I want to make sure I get this stat right
yes.
because I wrote it down. The difference in his splits this year are wild. He is averaging, since last season, almost 17 points per game in games that Bears have won to just 9.4 points per
Right.
game in Bears losses. Just this season, the number actually goes up a little bit to 16.9 points per game and slightly down to 8.7 points per game. But regardless, it's like if you think the Bears are going to win, play them. If you think they're
Right.
not, sit them. And as wild as this seems, and with the line this week, we have to assume Lamar's playing. The Bears are only favored in 2 games the rest of the season.
Yeah. Which is
They're 4-2.
fascinating for how this season could potentially play out for the Bears. Where, I mean, even last year they started out pretty good, and then you had the Hail Mary, and then I think they just didn't win again until they fired their coach. So we've seen Bears season take a hard turn before, and it could certainly happen again. Yeah, I'm with you. Swift is kind of the ultimate. If the situation's good, he will be good, and if it's not, he will do nothing. Like he is totally dependent on the team around him. So yeah, you're right. If this is a week where they're trailing, which if Lamar plays, that's the way I see it going. I haven't looked at the odds. I should have by now. I meant to bet the Ravens to win that division before last Thursday's game because that was thankfully a game I got right. The Cincinnati pulling the upset over the Steelers. So because they're the reverse, where you look at their schedule and you're like, my God, like how many losses are on here if Lamar, even with the defense as banged up as it is, like there's not a lot of losses here if Lamar is playing like we expect Lamar to play. Assuming
They're
he's healthy.
1-5. The Steelers are 4-2, and they are basically the exact same odds to win that division.
Right.
That is nuts.
Tells you everything.
And again, the Steelers are pretty much a guarantee for 9 wins, right? Like that's going back to the beginning of time at this point. Like Tomlin's been there for so long and having a winning record that it's nuts because again, 1-5, even with 17 games, you have what? 2 games left you can lose. Is that right? Or no, excuse me, 3, I guess. No, 5 they do. They only have 2 left.
There you go.
So, just crazy. What other backs do you like this week?
I'm intrigued by Woody Marks down there at 5,100. Again, I mean, this is a San Francisco team that has been a little bit giving against running backs this season. 5.1% receptions per game. That's in the bottom 10 in the NFL. And again,
that's the big deal.
The best linebacker in the NFL is out for the season.
Yep.
So the reason you always got afraid of playing a tight end or a running back, that guy doesn't exist for the rest of this season for San Francisco. And obviously, it's hard to predict how that game plays out because, again, the Houston defense has been awesome. The Houston offense has been mostly terrible except for, 2 games this season, which, of course, are their 2 wins. But, the thing with Woody is we've seen some carries happen. He had 17 against Tennessee. He had 10 against Seattle last week. They didn't really go anywhere, mind you.
Seattle's elite, though. I think
Seattle
at this point
is that's a defensive line that you don't want to mess with, and that's really the thing. If a team has an elite defensive line, just fade everything. Houston, fade the team in the actual game, fade everyone on the roster. If they aren't facing an elite defensive line, which again, of course, the Niners have had their injuries and are not an elite defensive line, this should be a functional offense. If Mac Jones, because I believe it seems like it's going to be Mac Jones again, if that offense is working the way it kind of has, despite all their issues, again, Kittle's back, so that a huge boost to that offense.
Yep.
Good chance Houston's trailing. That's going to mean more Woody Marks. He's the receiving back. He's had 7 receptions over the last 3 games. Those came in 2 of them. The one game he didn't have any receptions, the Baltimore game that they won 44-10.
Yeah.
So they didn't really need to do anything to the backs because guys were open downfield against the ravaged secondary. So not in that situation. I think we're getting at least 3 or 4 receptions in this game. Hopefully those carries that we've seen in the recently, we're getting 10 or 12 carries. And at 5,100, that makes him an interesting play. Obviously, if Tyler Algier turns out to be a full go, I think you could just go all in Falcons run game in that game, and I'd feel good about that.
I think they'll
So
again, if Lamar plays,
yeah,
Cal Monaghan, is that how you say it? Monaghan? I don't know why. Every
I
time
do not know how to.
how is it?
I honestly have not. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it out loud, so I don't
Okay,
know. But
great. Because I was about to be like,
Menengai, I don't
man,
know.
did I mess it up that bad? Every time I look at it, I see monorail. It's my Simpsons brain. But
It's a very, very interesting reading of his name.
I'm just saying. I see it and I go, oh, monorail.
You know, monorail.
Again, if Jackson plays,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a great play because he has really started eating into the snaps. I think he played 39% last week. He is, quote unquote, the pass catching third down back with the benefit of, I mean, he's starting to get carries, right? Like, which is a huge deal. Since the bye, you can sort of see they are ramping him up. So I think he, again, if Lamar plays, is really interesting. And you can make a case even if Lamar doesn't, right? And you think Chicago is going to be up.
Right.
Could be the same deal, right?
Right. It could just you could be interested in either back in that
Yep.
situation because at that point you're not banking on the Baltimore offense being very functional. And again, that defense is still banged up, so it's not like I'm expecting them to shut things down. So yeah, you're probably playing with a lead the majority of that game, most likely. So yeah, I like that play.
Any other backs? I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the main
did
thing
I
is
mention I do like Chase Brown this week, 5,400. We are seeing what a difference it makes when teams are not able to just stack
right.
the box on somebody, which is, really you look at it, he scored 13 points in the opener. It wasn't nothing to write home about, but it was a decent game, right? Burrow gets hurt, and then it was just rough. And then, Flacco's been there last 2 weeks, 9 for 42, most yards per carry he's had. At that point, all season, 4.7. Plays last week again. Flacco really gets going. 11 carries, 100 yards. He almost averaged 10 yards per carry. And the Jets again, they stink. And
I mean,
go ahead. Yeah.
My defense of the Jets would be that the run defense is actually, for the majority of the season, it's been pretty good. Now they got ravaged by the Cowboys, they got ravaged by the Bills. But even with those 2 games where they gave up over 5 yards per carry in both, they're giving up 3.99 yards per carry. They've given up 1 touchdown rushing outside of those 2 games. So really, they had 2 bad games against 2 elite offenses. And then the other thing is teams run the ball against them a lot because the Jets suck. And they're like last week against the Panthers, you give up 110 yards, but it's on 31 carries. So that's actually pretty good defense. But the problem is you're not stopping anyone through the air outside of Sauce Gardner. And then your offense is doing jack shit.
But I'd also add that
that could happen again, obviously, because there's no reason to start feeling better about this offense right now.
That's fair. I just mean that, look at Doddle's carries compared to Chuba Hubbard's, right? Doddle actually, again, was pretty good. I think he had, over 100 yards on, 18 touches to where
continues
Hubbard
to be the man.
Was, again, for whatever reason, Carolina still wants to play Hubbard 50% of the snaps and Doddle 44%. I don't know. They're football coaches. We're not. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it's a fair point. I think the Jets are borderline. It's going to get real ugly before this year's over with. And I think the Bengals are an offense that's rising. And the great thing about the Bengals offense rising, there is no denying who the lead back is in this
That is
offense.
true.
Like Chase
That is
Brown
true.
gets the goal line work. Like if they get down, he's going to be getting a lot of the targets in the passing game. Like it's Chase Brown's offense. So I just wanted to mention him. But those are fair
Sure.
points. And again,
And
go ahead.
the fact that, I mean, you jogged my memory there that, again, it's tough because of the timeshare that they're in now. But the Bills' run defense has been atrocious this season.
Mm-hmm.
It's been truly odd. They're giving up 5.4 yards per carry. They're the worst defense by rush DVOA. They've been terrible. So if you want to roll the dice on, let's just, Rico Dottle is now just the fucking man, and it doesn't matter what the game script is, I think he'll be involved. You could do that. I just 6,300. That's going to be kind of hard for me, I think, to ultimately justify. But it is a plus matchup. It's just the question of how much opportunity does he or Chuba get?
Yeah, I think that's why if I'm like, I'd rather play Kamara than either one of those guys. Kendra Miller is now done for the year. So I think from an opportunity share, Kamara, I mean, again, he's been banged up, but he's done this all season where it's like limited practices. And not only is he obviously going to be on the field a ton, but I just love that, all of a sudden, 19 targets over the last 4, 3 receptions in every one of those games, 4+ in 3 of 4. And I think Tampa's going to actually do better on offense this coming up week than they did this week. It looks like Ibuka's going to play. You know what I mean? Like, I think they're going to get back to rolling. New Orleans doesn't have a really good pass rush. Baker's just so good. And Kamara at 5,700, I mean, like, I am waiting. It's coming soon where he ends up having, like, a 9-catch game. Say he falls into the end zone on one of those. And this is about as good of a week as any when Tampa has been giving up points and receptions to running backs.
So. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I do think that could be a sneaky little shootout.
Yeah. Here it is. Bucks, excuse me, not just some points. Bucks defense, their last 3 games, 312 rushing yards with 4 touchdowns allowed. Also in that same span, 12 receptions for 151 yards. So that is just, again, over the last 3 games, almost 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, Kamara I may end up pivoting more and more there. Again, because New Orleans is also a team that I know they ranked 21st, but they've given up multiple touchdown passes in 6 of their 7 games this year, passing touchdown. So I think Baker and Tampa, even with the injuries, are going to move the ball. Wide receivers this week, which I actually think it's a weird week, man, which is good because I want to spend money at running back, right?
Definitely.
Obviously, you could talk me into Chase. You're not going to have to twist my arm. Obviously, you could talk me into, I think, who's going to get the Surtain treatment?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Because if Lamb is definitely getting it, Pickens then becomes very intriguing to me.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I want to pull up what Denver's giving up according to FTN to number 1 and number 2 wide receivers right now, because I'm very
while you're pulling that up.
So they're giving up 40 yards to number 1 wide receivers and 63 yards to number 2 wide receivers. So yeah, that's bottom 5 to number 2 wide receivers in yardage, and it's number 2 to number 1. So yeah, it's a huge gap. I don't know though
because the Surtain, I can't remember. Does he now follow people into the slot?
Right? Is he going everywhere? That's a good question. Let me see if I can find some information here.
So your stat about Miami makes me think that Drake London 6,400 should definitely be under some consideration. Again, my concern would be exactly what I was just talking about: is the run game. Can Miami score points? Go ahead, Joe.
So ESPN's got their shadow report here, and He's been traveling with Calvin Ridley, Michael Pittman, Quentin Johnson, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson. Traveled with all of them. Only Quentin Johnston broke 10 points.
Okay. So maybe Pickens is.
So Lamb, now obviously when he goes in the slot, then you're probably not going to see Surtain there. So there is some opportunity to get away from him for Lamb. But anytime they're in too wide, he's going to be on him. So yeah, I think if you're making that Dallas play here, that would be the one would be to go with Pickens.
So I'm not going to lie. The first guy that I think will for sure be in a good bit of my lineups is all the way down to 6,200. He's facing Dallas. Cortland Sutton. Again, the Cowboys defense is bad. I think if you're going to play Bo Nix, even with his rushing floor and upside and everything, it's hard not to play Sutton, especially when you look at his man zone splits. Cowboys run zone at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Target separation, 0.77 versus man, 2.14 versus zone. Fantasy points per target, 1.47 versus man, 3.21 versus zone. So being able to stack Sutton and Nix at 12-2 in a game that you pretty much assume there's going to be points, there's going to be pandemonium, that's hard for me to avoid. But my favorite play this week is T. Higgins, 5,600 versus the Jets. I mean, again, the passing offense alive and well. Higgins in the 2 games with Flacco, 18 targets, 11 receptions, 100 basically 60 yards, 32, fantasy points. But again, it's the man zone splits. Jets run man defense at a top 10 rate. Higgins this year, man zone splits. Yards per route run versus zone, 0.77 versus man, 1.58. Target rate versus zone, 13% versus man, 24%. This is the big one. First read target share versus zone, 22% versus man, almost 40 at 38%. And then fantasy points per target, 1.17 versus zone. That jumps up to 1.75 versus man. And then, I know Sauce is not the guy that he was, but you assume he's going to be on Chase a lot.
Yeah.
So I love Higgins this week, and now what is a pass-happy offense. So, those are honestly the 2 receivers that are going to be most of my lineups. I'm not going to spend on receiver. Again, I'm going to save that money, trying to get at least 2 of those expensive backs in there. I'll probably go even cheaper for the third one. I'm going to go cheap at tight end this week, cheap at defense. I think you see the theme here. And I feel really comfortable about Sutton and Higgins. Those are guys that you're getting. Again, Higgins is averaging 9 targets since Flacco's been there. Not too shabby.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that T. Higgins play is just a fire it up, let's go type of play. But there are some expensive guys, or relatively expensive guys when we're comparing to Jamar Chase or the running backs. They're all costing 9,000. Plays that I'm really interested in. Roma Dunze, I think he's had the 2 quiet weeks. He did have in one of those weeks he had a touchdown get called back, but it's really been kind of the comeback down to earth. Maybe he's not taking that huge leap that people thought. Here comes the banged up Baltimore defense. And it's a defense that runs man at the 2nd highest rate. Adunze, target rate jumps 10%. Fantasy points per route run more than doubles. Especially, again, if Lamar is playing, then this becomes a guy I'm trying to fit in. Again, if I'm not trying to do the crazy double 9K running backs, then I'm trying to get a Dunze into every lineup if Lamar is playing, because that's where the shootout potential comes in, and it's an awesome matchup. AJ Brown at 6,100. His ownership could end up being crazy depending on how much people buy into the fact that he just had his best game of the season last week against Minnesota. But it's worth remembering that even in that Giants game where the offense didn't score any points in the second half, That was a 6 reception, 9 target, 80-yard game for him. And again, like Baltimore, this is a banged up Giants defense. This is a Giants defense that runs a shit ton of man coverage. And no surprise if you've done anything DFS fantasy over the last few years, you should know AJ Brown lives to destroy your man defense.
What was
And
his first read target share last? Or target share was like 43% versus man
something
last year? It was
crazy.
something outrageous.
And again, the splits are as stark as I can remember seeing anyone like this deal. Obviously, for 3 weeks in the season, you'll have weird splits sometimes, whatever. We're about 2 months into the season. His target rate, according to PFF, jumps from 16% to 37% going from zone to man. And his fantasy points per route run jumped from 0.17, so not even good. He's averaging under a yard per route run against zone, according to PFF this year, to 0.99 against man. He's averaging, so he goes from averaging under a yard per route run to over 4 yards per route run against man, going from zone to man. So again, what I think that's one of the best plays always is when you get the heavy man defenses, because I just think it's a little more predictable than like some of the zone stuff. Because some
Minnesota
guys
runs a lot of man, right?
Yes, Minnesota runs a lot of man as well. So no surprise, AJ Brown ate that entire game. And then another one, and again, this is probably a bit dependent on Lamar Jackson playing, but Zay Flowers,
Zay Flowers. Yeah.
Jumps 12% in target rate. His fantasy points per route run jumps about what is that? Let me do my math real quick. Yeah, jumps 40%. So that's another guy where he's facing a defense that does not scare you. That's both him and Odunze feel like much bigger plays. If again, everyone in that game except for Swift feels like a much better play if Lamar Jackson is there. Whether that's
the 4 Lamar starts, by the way, 28 targets, 8 or more in 3 of 4. But the big thing for me, 7+ receptions in 3 of those 4 games. And that's not even, talking about the man zone splits, which as you were just, again, showing, obviously that is also an advantage for him. But just the fact that we've seen this with Lamar. Lamar, it's one guy. Like, it's the Zay Flowers show. Because you can either focus on stopping Henry and Lamar, and when you do that, Flowers is one-on-one, and he's just very tough to cover in those situations. Or you can bracket him, and typically, again, you're going to have to deal with, Henry and Lamar just running crazy.
And then, why not just stick with my theme of finding guys who like to beat up on man defenses. The New England Patriots, more efficient against man, whether it's Diggs, it's Booty, both of those guys see significant jumps in fantasy points per route run. Now, what I will say is Booty's target rate actually goes slightly down versus man, where Diggs sees the jump. So this is another one where maybe you end up it's too hard to figure out which guy you want to play. But if Diggs, who's questionable again, he has been a limited participant, so my expectation right now would be that he'll play. But if for whatever reason Diggs does not play, then I'm all in on Kayshon Boutte at 4,800 against a man defense. Again, number 1 in man defense rate, the Cleveland Browns. With the quarterback who's been like the most accurate quarterback across like the entire field in the NFL this season in Drake May. So if Diggs is out for whatever reason, Bootie's the guy under 5K that I'm putting into every single lineup.
And by the way, Diggs, I know that it's been a couple of down weeks, but let's not forget he's now had a target share of 29% 3 of the last 4 games. In that span, he's wide receiver 13 in receiving yards per game and wide receiver 5 in target share at 29.5%.
So it's pretty good.
And Cleveland is the added bonus that, like, yes, I know New England can't really run on anybody, but you literally cannot run on Cleveland. Yeah.
There's games where you do legitimately go like, all right, well, we got to stick with the run because
Yep.
eventually something will pop. Listen, you can't. I don't ever want a team to be throwing like 80% of the time unless you're down 20 points.
Right.
But if they're not having like a neutral, pass rate call of like 2/3 of their plays passing, then I don't know what they're doing because Drake, man, if you need to do wide receiver screens, you need to do quick game because that pass rush is scary. That's fine, but do that. Do not try to run the ball into this defensive line when you have like the least efficient run game in the NFL. Just and 2/3 of your running backs want to fumble the ball every 10 carries. So, yeah, don't do that.
Great stuff, Joe, on the wide receivers. Tight end this week. Again, I can't stress this enough. I like some of the more expensive guys. Like Tyler Warren, dude's open all the time.
It doesn't
Jake
matter.
Ferguson, like one of the places that Denver really struggles is middle of the field. And they just got Greenlaw back, and guess what? He got suspended immediately. So he's not going to be available for, I don't know if it's the first half or this entire game. But again, that just makes Ferguson very affordable. Who all he does is keep just like, he may actually be the most valuable person selected and like the league winner when this fantasy football season is done. Harold Fannin, like especially when Njoku misses again. Wonderful, wonderful matchup. His target rate, everything. Dallas Goedert, again, he killed the Giants a few weeks ago. He had an off game last week.
He absolutely did.
Overall, been great. But I'm sorry. I'm going to be playing Dalton Schultz everywhere as long as he's healthy. Everywhere. Because he has become the focal point in this Texans pass game. I mean, it's pretty impressive what we've seen over the last few weeks. For the last month, 28 targets, 6 or more every single game. 24 receptions, 5 or more every single game. 227 yards in that span, at least 30 receiving yards in every game. He's had, I think, actually 60 in 3 and 4. Almost 12 points per game, at least 8 in every one of them. You brought it up, Joe. You said it when we were talking about the running backs. No Fred Warner. We saw the last 2 weeks since the Fred Warner injury early in that game, they've been getting burnt by tight ends. Cade Otton, I think it was like 6 for 80. Last week, Kyle Pitts, 9 for 60. Like, they are giving up immediately the minute they lost him. And then you have a guy that's already getting peppered with targets. I agree with you, Joe, that I think San Francisco is going to get up in this game, making it a pass-heavy script. And Nico Collins is banged up on top of all that. So, again, Schultz technically has a questionable tag as well. He is one of those guys, though, that, again, he's been kind of playing that game a lot this season, too, where it's limited practice, right? Like, they have to get that, I guess, questionable tag or whatever. But I love Schultz. And that's probably who's going to be in a majority of my lineups. But the other guy who actually is $200 cheaper, Helm for Tennessee, who has all of a sudden grabbed that backfield. And then the third guy, I hate to do it, people, but we've seen this movie before. Kendre Miller is out. Taysom Hill's 2,900. If you think there's going to be points in that game, there's a good chance Taysom Hill is going to get a touchdown. And at 2,900, he scores a touchdown. He is basically already zoning in on his 3-time score. And I just expect with Kendre Miller done for the year, not only will he get those goal line carries, there's a good chance he's going to get some more rushes as well. So I'm going to stay very cheap this week. Again, Schultz is probably my most played guy, but you can talk me into Helm against Indy, who gives up a ton of points. He is actually the one now seeing all the targets in the Tennessee passing game. And then again, Taysom Hill, I know it's gross. I get it. But Like, we've seen this movie before. Like, they're light at running back. I just think he's going to get used a good bit.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm certainly not arguing against, in general, those top tight ends, but none of them have really plus matchups. And actually, again, if assuming Lamar plays, which I think he will, Zay Flowers is actually priced cheaper or competitive to those guys, and I think I would take him over them. So this is not going to be like last week where it was
Spend
like
up.
I'm going 2 tight ends and I'm willing to spend 10,000 on those 2 guys.
Yep.
Especially, yeah, like you said, when we're trying to fit in some really expensive running backs.
And just
If
remember
I'm
for Sunday night, people,
Yeah.
I tried to tell you about the Green Bay Packers and why, even though McBride was 6K, 100% of my lineups, they cannot stop tight ends. So, Pittsburgh, you're doing a single, what is it? The showdown lineup. Play all 3 Pittsburgh tight ends. They might all score again.
It could happen. The only frustrating thing really for me is just like how many of the guys I want to play are questionable right now, where
Right?
I think my dream combination, if I was going double tight end, and again, I might because of the running backs I'm trying to fit in, would be Schultz and Mason Taylor. Because again,
Yep.
you've got Garrett Wilson out, which means Taylor's going to see more targets. And I mean, God, who is more giving to tight ends than the Cincinnati Bengals? The answer is literally no one. They've given up 7 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. The only time all year that they didn't give up 50 yards to opposing tight ends was against the Jags. Like you said, I mean, every tight end on the Steelers, it was an Oprah, everyone gets to score type of game for the Steelers tight ends. So if both those guys are goes, I will have lineups with both of those guys.
I like that.
But
because that's how you can fit in, right? Like 2 of those backs.
Right. Let's get in. And like you said, you could potentially even go cheaper if you want to go Helm at 3,100 versus Taylor at 35 and Schultz at 33. But yeah, if I'm going double tight end this week, I'm probably going $7,000 or cheaper on the combination.
Yep.
So to be able to hopefully, again, like I say, I will some way, somehow, I will do at least one lineup where I get both Taylor and Bijan into my lineup.
Oh, one other thing I meant to mention. And again, I'm just mentioning this. I'm not necessarily saying play these guys, but your giant tight ends. I want to go over these numbers. Dart is now targeting tight ends 25% of his pass attempts, with his tight ends averaging 20.4 points per game in his 4 starts, making technically both Theo Johnson and Bellinger like people you should at least consider. Of course, Bellinger last week, 4 targets turned into 88 yards. 2 scores? Or no, 1 score, excuse me.
Yeah.
And Bellinger may miss this week, right?
He is questionable. So my main
Theo
concern is
then
really
become a big play if Bellinger's out and he's gonna get all the targets, or do you think that it's the fact that they're throwing to both of them is why he's having so much success throwing to tight ends?
Yeah, I mean, Theo's a guy who I think frustrates both me and a lot of Giants fans, where it's just like he's big and he's fast, but my preferred tight ends are guys who, guys like Tyler Warren, where he has good straight speed, but it's more he's more agile. It's This guy's routes are good. He get the ball in his hands. He's doing stuff. Theo is he feels more like the conceptual, like you look at the numbers, you're like, this guy's going to be good. And then it's like, he's okay. And also his hands are super inconsistent. Like he's dropping wide open passes. And then the Denver game, he's like catching a deflection and running for 40-yard touchdown. So it's like, I don't know what's going on with him week to week. But I would have brought them up, except I think this Eagles defense, that's the thing that they've been able to take away. Because again, since Slayton got hurt over the last 3 weeks, Bellinger has played, who's the backup tight end, has played over 50% of the snaps 3 straight weeks. So they've gone all in on 2 tight ends.
Oh, wow, and you're right. I'm sorry. That shows how many points those dudes have been scoring, too, to be averaging 20 for the month. They scored less than 5 in that game combined.
Right, because you look at the 2 games surrounding that, where they, again, both were playing over 50% of the snaps. against Denver and New Orleans combined, Johnson has 9 catches on 14 targets, 99 yards, and 3 scores, which, obviously is awesome. And then Bellinger, especially considering he was 2,500 every week this season was his price tag. And in the 2 non-Eagles games, because he did literally 0 across the board against the Eagles, 7 catches, 8 targets, 140 yards and a score. So, yeah, I'm very interested in monitoring the Giants tight end situation week to week because I think there could be some crazy value there, even when Slayton comes back. But against Philadelphia, I'd rather be going in on the guys we've already talked about, even if it's a little more expensive compared to Bellinger, but especially considering he's already banged up. So, yeah, I like the guys we're talking about. But, yes, do pay attention. Keep an eye on that Giants tight end group week to week because that has been something that's been super successful for the team.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, defenses, we'll get out of here. It's not great. It's
not touching the first. Like the Jets are the first one where you're like, you know what? Flacco is always capable of throwing like back-to-back pick sixes.
Yep.
So that's the first one that's interesting because man, I have 0 interest in the bottom 4. Just none.
Oh, the Panthers too.
Yeah, I don't against Buffalo. No, Buffalo off of a bye, right? If I'm remembering,
they are, but Carolina's been pretty good at home.
Well, I guess. Well, like they've had 2 really good games.
Oh, you're right. Actually, I'm sorry. I said that they were competitive, not actually. You're right.
Right.
And
last week was on the road, and they were just playing the Jets, so that always helps.
Scratch it from the record. So is the Bears the play if Lamar miraculously does not play?
Yeah, I think probably. I mean, obviously, I think you should have interest in the Bengals at $100 more, but the Bears are a more competent defense, where the Bengals are actually still pretty awful. So yeah, I think if you can afford it, the Bears are the play if Lamar doesn't play. If Lamar does, then I can't say I'm terribly interested in that one either. In which case, I mean, I guess you can always talk me into Cleveland because they're cheap and it's a good defense. But man, I really don't want to go against Drake May.
He's due to have a bad game.
He is, but I feel like I guess that's the thing. It's like I trust Drake May so much more than Joe Flacco, but also obviously I trust the Browns defense more than I trust the Jets defense. But I kind of think the Jets defense is going to end up in a lot of my lineups just because Flacco has that potential.
Yeah.
And they're super cheap. Because otherwise. And
I mean, to be
the Browns
fair,
D-line's awesome, but Drake May's awesome. And then, every other one feels too sketchy / more expensive.
Yeah. I'm with you.
God help us betting anything on any part of the Jets, but
I mean, it sucks because like I like San Francisco to me most weeks. Let's go. Philly revenge game at home. Your guys got to be feeling down after that, just heartbreaking loss.
How do they
Denver.
Respond to that?
Like again, let's go. Atlanta's pass rush versus Tua. Let's go. Sure. But it's not a week that, I'm willing to spend. New England's defense has looked really good since Christian Gonzalez. But, like, you have to save every dollar this week. Like, I know we say this every week anyway. Like, we have learned that you just don't spend on defenses. It's too random. And for everyone you get right, it's still, like, it's crazy. It was like Cleveland last week. I gave Cleveland saying that they were my second favorite defense. But ultimately, who did I end up playing? The Giants. Now, that was one of the rare cases where it would have really paid off. Like, right? Like, I would have rather had that $800 on the defense and figured something out somewhere else. But for every one of those, there's like 50 times that you're going to basically spend $800 and the difference is going to be like a point or two.
Right. So yeah, and obviously some weeks we get blessed where there's one where we're like, how did they price it this way? This is a
Right.
smash play at 2,500,
Yep.
and that just does not exist. Obviously, if it was like Jake Browning, then the
Right.
Jets would become the smash play at
Yep.
2,300. But yeah, I'm probably going Jets. Like you said, if Lamar doesn't play, then maybe I'll try and scrounge and get that 300 and go with the Bears. And then otherwise, yeah, because it's like just choose your Jets Bengals battle there, because I really don't like any of the other matchups and like under 3,000. I mean, the Niners at 2,900, I'd feel still pretty good about because that Texans offense has been bad.
Especially with Robert Saleh.
Right. Terrible defense, terrible offensive line, gives so many sack opportunities. But under 2,900, yeah, I think it's Jets Bengals, and then it's the Bears if Lamar doesn't play. And that's kind of it.
I'm 100% with any chance you would go Baltimore with Lamar playing off a bye, Chicago, right? Like gets down early.
Right. Something weird could happen with Caleb. So, but the thing with Caleb, though, is, I mean, I guess he's taken a reasonable number of
He
sacks
doesn't really
over
turn
the
it
last
over,
year
though,
or
does
so.
he?
You're right. He doesn't turn the ball over. Like, I think we all think of him as this
Which is so
gunslinger guy
ironic
who's kind of
because in
inaccurate.
college,
But
that was like the big, like, oh, he's good. He's too risky with the ball. And it's like, no.
I mean, I guess like you could maybe talk me into it just because maybe you don't want to have to trust the Jets or the Bengals at all. But
It's a lot of
yeah,
extra money, though.
I don't. Yeah, it's more money, and I don't feel that much better about it.
And it's not like I trust the Bengals. You know what I mean? Like I actually trust the Jets guys more than I do the Bengals. Like they're actual dudes.
I think I would overall have to agree with that, because there's only one guy in the Bengals I truly trust and believe in. So.
And is there any chance it's rough picking. Dallas was the only other team I wanted to mention. Is there any chance that they could be a decent play? Because we see a lot of what we saw with the Giants last week, where Cowboys get up, but instead, of it falling apart, the Cowboys just keep scoring. And we've seen when you know what I mean? Like, I think you can get Bo Nix. We saw it, like with your yeah.
I mean, I think that potential exists, but you know, again, it's like, do I trust the Dallas defense more than the Jets defense? Which, again, not a defense I trust
the
this
Jets,
year. But
and actually, what am I talking about? Aaron Glenn will literally slow a game down that he's trailing by 10. So,
and then you know, we can make whatever argument. You know, you could be anti-Bo Nix, pro Joe Flacco, whatever. But if we're just talking about the chances for the pick six that we dream of, it's Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm sticking with the Jets.
I think you're right. I think that's it. So, the dream is, right, if you have T. Higgins, he goes bananas, but Flacco throws 2 pick sixes. And also Flacco.
They throw 2 pick sixes and they win by 10. Yeah. Because that's how that game would play out.
Yeah.
They win 27-17.
I can't believe we're already at week 8, which is nuts.
It does seem to be moving fast.
A little secret, because I know Joe's, I hate saying this out loud, considerably younger than me, but every year gets quicker, man. Like my parents used to tell me that, and boy, is that true. And if you're younger going, God, old dude, shut up, just wait.
Right. And it's, what's the quote from somewhere? It's like, the days are long, but the years are fast.
Yep.
And then it's like every year older you get, the more you feel it. We're just like, you know, day to day still feels the same, but the longer periods of time feel like they just fly by.
Amen. And, you know, again, the reason Ferris Bueller is a classic, life moves at you pretty fast, because it really does.
There you go.
For you young kids, check that out. I'm serious. I don't care how old you are. That movie fucking rocks.
If you know what 6'7" is, you don't know this yet, but go check that movie out.
6'7". Oh, it made my day, Joe. You just don't know how much it made my day to be like, I know what that means. I'm not a boomer.
That's right. Still young. Still got it.
That's right. Young at heart. Speaking of that, I'm probably about to go to bed because I'm tired. But Joe, enjoyed it.
As always.
And we'll see you next week. Check out all the cool stuff on Fantasy Six Pack, guys. See you later.